April 2021, I took my first photography trip to Chincoteague, Virginia to photograph the wild horses. These are actually not the photos that I took. I took these photos in July of 2021. These are actually the photos that I took in April. Why do they look like this? Because I opened the back of my SLR camera in broad daylight because my film got jammed because I didn't know how to properly load my camera, and I just messed up. I made a bad mistake. The reason I made this mistake is because I was traveling with a camera that I did not know how to use. Don't be like me. My first tip is knowing your camera and knowing your camera as well as you possibly can. Creative freedom comes from a place of familiarity with your camera gear. It's really hard to bring your creative vision to life when you don't know how to operate your camera and use the settings to your advantage. So before you're leaving for your trip, it's important to know your camera super well. Know how to troubleshoot it, know how to adjust it quickly, especially when it comes to like nature and animals, even people. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where you need to change your aperture quick, change your ISO quick. So by being really familiar with your camera, you can get the most out of it. And it also just saves you from heartbreak, like I experienced. By the way, my name is Tessa. I love travel and photography, and I make videos about travel and photography. So if you like those things too, you should subscribe. My next piece of advice is focusing on details. Details are so important in travel photography because details tell a story, not only of the place that you're going to, but your experience within it as well. Especially the ones that you find yourself noticing most often. These small details are probably the aspects of the place that you're least likely to remember once you're home. And I also think that a lot of people, when they go on trips and do travel photography, they take pictures of the same things that everyone else in that place is taking pictures of. I do think that you should spend time photographing the big landmarks and the monuments and famous pieces of art or whatever else brings people to that place. But also remember that that photo exists on Google millions upon millions of times. You are trying to tell your story, not necessarily the story of like the average person who goes to the place. So along with those, typical travel photos, take photos of the things that you find particularly beautiful. It also just encourages you to slow down. I think a lot of times when we're traveling, we have like a very go, go, go mentality, which is fine. It's busy. You're trying to fit a lot of things in a short amount of time. But when it comes to photography and just art in general, slowing down is what is going to make your work more thorough. I feel like it's just going to leave you feeling more satisfied at the end of your trip. And you just have a stronger cultural awareness when you slow down for a second and really focus on the small things. So my next piece of advice is shooting in black and white more often. I love shooting in black and white. I always say this, but if I could put every single image in black and white, I literally would. I sometimes consider becoming like an only black and white photographer. Black and white just adds so much to an image. And it's interesting because you're taking away color, but once you take away the distraction of color, you notice so many details and textures that weren't there before. And a lot of people are scared because it's like you're going to such a beautiful place and you don't want to miss all the colors. But especially if you're shooting digital, if you're shooting film and like you have a roll of black and white, I can kind of understand, like that's different. But if you're shooting digital, which I assume most people probably are, you can take both. Like, just take the color photo, test it out in black and white, and you might find that you like the image a lot more. Because black and white really changes the entire dynamic of a photo. Why do I think black and white is so special? There are many reasons. First, it is just classic, it's timeless. It is like the foundation of photography itself. I am never gonna get tired of looking at a black and white image. Just never. And especially when it comes to travel photography and taking photos as keepsakes and not just as, you know, for artistic purposes, you can look at it forever. It's just amazing. Number two, like I mentioned a few seconds ago, so many details come out of an image when you take away color, especially when it comes to texture and very, very fine details. It just makes so much of a difference that I think it's worth at least trying black and white out on every image. Three, I just think it's good practice when it comes to contrast, light, shadow. All of these fundamental characteristics of an image are accentuated when an image is in black and white. And I just think that when you master those elements of an image, your storytelling gets better, and you're just like strengthening a creative muscle that you wouldn't if you were just like snapping a color image and just like, you know, if that was just that. Black and white evokes emotion. It's just beautiful. So you don't have to shoot all your images in black and white, obviously, but just test out a few images in black and white and you might find that you love how it changes. It's so hard to describe. It just, black and white is beautiful. This next tip is a tip that was given to me by a fellow photographer, creative partner, friend, all that jazz. And that is to photograph your accommodation. Photographing the Airbnb, hotel, wherever you're staying is mostly about personal reflection and documentation of a place. Usually when I travel, I'm staying in Airbnbs and I fall in love with them because they're like gorgeous and cute and quaint and everything that I would ever want in a home away from home. And I think it's important to document those spaces because they play such a huge role in your time spent in a place. Photographing yourself within the space, your friends and family within the space, your dog within the space. These are all very important keepsakes that you can have that are very unique to you, not just what everyone else can also take when they go to, I don't know, Costa Rica or whatever. My next piece of advice is focusing on architecture and nature. These are two very unique factors of any place that you're going to, and I just think it's really important to document them. Architecture and nature play such a huge role in your visual experience as well as the identity of a place, especially when you consider the intersection between man-made and natural. And I would say that these subjects are probably my favorite subjects to shoot when I'm traveling because you can just do so much with perspective and composition, especially if the subjects are not moving. You can move yourself within the space, and I just like that creatively better. Architecture represents history and it is art. It's a type of art. So by photographing architecture, you're capturing the essence and like the soul of that place. And then when it comes to nature, nature is beauty. Nature literally breathes life into images. There's just so much you can do when you practice nature photography. And chances are the nature is going to be one of the most diverse parts of the place that you're in. And it just really helps tell the story of a place and it helps tell your story. So I would highly recommend at least taking a day or two to really point your camera towards nature, towards architecture, especially like I recommend shooting up. I've taken some of my favorite images when instead of just focusing on things that are eye level, focus on bell towers and cathedrals, all these different things that you wouldn't really look at eye level. I just think you can get a lot out of that creatively. And bonus points if you're able to capture an image that has humans interacting with the architecture, with the nature, or with both. So my final piece of advice is incorporating juxtaposition into your work. This is how you're going to make your images more interesting to look at, more engaging. Juxtaposition, in my opinion, is that wow factor in travel photography. There's going to be things that you photograph that are super small, super big, but it doesn't translate through the actual image. And by using juxtaposition, you're providing the viewer with context of the subject. Juxtaposition allows you to create contrast, relationship between objects, depth, symbolism. It's just a really important skill in photography because it adds a layer of complexity and narrative to a simple image. One of my favorite photographs that I've ever taken is this image of the Santa Maria del Fiore in Firenze. It's by no means a perfect image, but the juxtaposition invokes a very specific memory attached to that image, as well as also tells an important story. So I remember walking through the streets of Firenze with my mom, and at one point we had already seen the cathedral. We'd been inside of it. Like, it wasn't like we didn't know the size of it, but we were just walking, we turned a corner and it opens up to like the piazza area, and which Italians know how to center a city like around a beautiful cathedral. They just like know how to do a city. But yeah, it opened up into this piazza and the cathedral was just like huge. Like, it didn't even look real how big it looked, but the reason why it looked so tiny, or no, the reason why it looked so big was because the people below were like these little tiny specks, and the cathedral was like so massive, and it just truly, it took my breath away. And so anyone looking at that image is going to think that is a big ass church. Like, oh my. And what adds the storytelling element to it is seeing the little like modern people next to this huge cathedral that was built by people, I'm not even gonna say a date, I don't know, probably hundreds of years ago. I don't know history, but built so long ago. And like, I just love that image. So I think the image captured the size of it better than my own eyes saw it. So for me, that gives the image the wow factor that makes it one of my favorite images that I've taken. And that's what I love most about it. So that's gonna wrap up my video today. I hope you found the information useful. I tried to do like creative focused advice and not like technical advice, because I didn't want to give advice for any specific type of camera, you know, DSLR, SLR, point and shoot, whatever. So these are all practices and techniques that you can use with any camera, even your iPhone. This all works for iPhone as well. If you would like to keep up with my photography or my traveling or just whatever I'm getting up to in general, you can subscribe, because I'm going to be traveling almost all summer. So lots of content, lots of photography, and we can grow together as a community. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.